Jen Langley, Air Force Women's Gymnastics, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for being willing to take some questions from fans as well as us today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to have the fans ask some questions and ready to get started.
That's great. I know you live down in Colorado Springs. Just tell us, how are you and your family doing during this quarantine time with COVID-19?
We're doing pretty well. Fortunately, none of us have been sick or any of our close family members either. So that's been really nice. But I'll say my garden has never looked nicer because I've got a lot of extra time, to go and get plants, or my husband get plants. So doing a ton of gardening. Fortunately, my daughter's daycare has been open for the most part. She's 2.5, because otherwise I would not have been able to get a ton of work done because they're crazy. She has way more energy than I do, always rambunctious. So that's been really nice that we've been able to continue to send her because both my husband and I are working from home. But I would say the hardest thing about this is that we've been under a home renovation that started like a little bit before COVID-19 hit. So our contractors are working really hard to get everything done, but we've been without a first floor and without a kitchen this entire time. So lots of grilling, lots of Instapot, takeout, as best as we could. So being really creative and pretty much doing everything in one room, like our guest room where we eat, where we watch TV. So that's probably been the most creative and crazy thing we've been having to do. But I think one also really great thing is that we've been able to hang out more with Ella, my daughter. She's 2.5, so we play at night way more because we work late hours or on weekends. So that's been a kind of a little blessing in disguise that we get to hang out with her, playing outside or inside or doing fun things like that. But fortunately, we've all been safe, and that's the biggest thing that we want to do, and hopefully find our new normal soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Take us through how the season ended for your team. I know we spoke offline a little bit about you were waiting for a flight to go out, and just take me through that whole process and how you handled it, how you yourself handled it, how your athletes handled it.
Yeah, obviously we kind of heard the rumblings and saw some of the rumblings in the week prior and the week of moving up to it. We had seen some counterparts in our especially the East Coast, some of our rivals over there of meets being canceled, and we were like, well, that's weird because we hadn't quite gotten it over on the West Coast yet, and we all thought they were being a little bit taking things too seriously, and obviously they weren't. But so we saw a little bit of that, and we had a superintendent meeting and staff meetings kind of leading up that week, and we actually had one on the morning of where we were supposed to head to Denver International Airport in order to catch our flight over to go compete at Iowa State. And that whole morning I was texting and calling with Jay, the head coach there, and keeping him in the loop. He's asking, are you still coming? And I'm like, I think so. And, I'll let you know after this meeting. And, maybe in 1 hour it's different. He's like, okay. I'm like, are you still having a meet? And he's like, at this point, yeah. So we went back and forth, and it was really crazy. Communicating with the team, like, hey guys, still keep your bags packed, still meet at our rendezvous point. I'll let you know if it changes. But, we had our meeting, and they said, no, head to DIA. We'll let you know if we call you back. I'm like, okay, so get on the bus. And even if I get to DIA, like, we might turn around and come home. And they're like, yeah. So obviously that's what we did. And I think the best thing we did during that time was just communication. It wasn't anything that I hid from the team, because obviously it's all over social media. There's news reports everywhere of, Big 12 not doing this, Big 10 not doing this, and basketball tournaments and stuff. So we just really communicated with the team and let them know, hey, we're still planning on competing and we're still planning on flying. However, that might change. And if it does, I'll let you know, and I'll keep you up to date as soon as possible. So we hopped on the bus to DIA, and I said, we always check for two things: patience with our team and snacks. But we always take when we travel. Big groups, things go wrong and we get hungry. So those are the two things. Everyone had those things. And so we headed up to DIA the whole entire time on phone calls with my supervisors, Iowa State, different things. We actually pulled into just the kind of like limousine taxi, that lot, because I didn't want to get off the bus, send the bus back, and then have to wait an hour and a half if we couldn't fly. So luckily the bus waited with us, and we sat there on the bus, and sure enough got the call that said Iowa State no longer is having a meet. So had to come back onto the bus and let the team know that, at this weekend, we're not having this regular season meet. Conference is still a possibility. We're still planning on that. Like, let's refocus, let's go there, but let's turn around and drive back home. But because it was a little bit of a crazy time, we stopped at Smash Burger. And we sat and ate burgers and cheeseburgers and fries and just made the best of the experience on our way home. So pretty much we took a 3-hour trip to Smash Burger on that day just to come back to the academy. So it was really fun in the grand scheme of things. We
Yeah.
dealt with it very
And
well.
seeing now, looking back and realizing that, these were probably the proper decisions that were made. But how did, as it went along, and then you find out the MPSF is over and the NCAA is not going to have anything. How did, especially Anna Salamone, your lone senior that competed, how did she handle that? Because a lot of cadets had a tough time of it. Everybody knows the tragedies that happened in those weeks there before graduation. But how did Anna handle it personally?
Anna is a really great leader. She was one of our co-captains. So obviously Anna had a tough time, just like anybody, of realizing that our season was over. She would have no more competitions. Obviously, she's one of our most consistent of all time women's gymnastics, not only scoring wise, but getting up and hitting routine after routine after routine. And so, that's really hard for her season to come end, her senior year to come to an end. She was in the qualifying for NCAA regionals on bars again, on even bars, like she had the 3 other years. So that was tragic, but I think what helped her through it was that she had, plans afterwards, right? So she's an acquisitions officer, she's getting married, she's doing all those different things. And so fortunately our athletes, they're set up success for the future. And they have other things to look forward to. And she didn't have to worry about, well, now what do I do? How do I finish school? What job do I have? So I think she was able to refocus and put her step into kind of graduating, getting school done, and moving forward, which was really helpful. But she also had a really great message to the team. It was when we had team meetings, when we moved to virtual right away, and she was a part of it, it was kind of that, hey, let's not take anything for granted. That's easy to say now that we're in this situation, but it's true. Each practice, you never know when's your last, whether it's because of an injury or whether it's because of something crazy like a pandemic like we're in that nobody could have foreseen. So her message of really being gracious to all the opportunities we have at USAFA and gracious to all of the people you have around, because sometimes we take for granted our teammates or our coaches or people that are around us all the time because they're always around. Well, now we've found out that they're not always around. So she had that really great message, which again, I think goes to show her true leadership and how well she does at that. So she did have a really tough time, obviously, and not being able to fulfill some of those last goals that I know she probably had for herself and did have for herself. But I think she really got to see kind of that silver lining and really helped our coming back roster in seeing that too, and letting them realize like, hey, you can take advantage of this moving forward and put it to next season and make something great of yourself. So we definitely appreciate that.
That's great. And we should give a nod to Anna too, because she was all MPSF again, as well as 3 other athletes and also all Americans. Let's give a shout out to those ladies, Brianna Carr as well, and Heidi and Natalie as well, both all being recognized by the NCAA. A little different because it's not total competition, but it did matter because it was scores throughout the season, right?
Yeah, it was all the scores through week 10, exactly, of all of the competitions that we were able to get to. So yeah, all 4 athletes, great accomplishment. Some of them, it was the first time them ever getting that, Natalie, Brianna, all that stuff. And it was great. We had actually somebody from every single class, Anna senior, Heidi junior, Natalie sophomore, and Brianna freshman. So I think that goes to show how the team really comes together and how we compete everybody at USAFA. It's not just the top dogs or the juniors and seniors. We're all encompassing. If you put in the hard work, you get to compete and show that out there. So really great job to all 4 of those and the whole roster as well.
What would you say in your mind was the most difficult part of the season being shut down? Was it having to tell them it's over? Was it having to just deal with it? What would you say?
I think it wasn't necessarily the telling, because I think, again, we were pretty aware and we were really communicating on every single day on every aspect of the things happening. What I think was the hardest part was that not everything came to fruition and we're not really sure where we were going to be, right? were we going to be repeat champs? Were we not? Were we going to have a higher NQS than last year or the same NQS? Were we going to have more All-Americans? Were we, I think that's kind of the hardest thing was that, and still to this day, we have some uncertainty and we've talked about it as a team, but I think that was kind of the hardest because this year was a crazy year. We've had different coaching staffs, we had different facility issues, we've had a lot of different things that our team was so strong about, and did a really great job of overcoming. And we've done it. We had some meets that we hit out of the park, and we had some that we fell a little short. Some where we figured out beam, some where we didn't figure out beam or bars. And I think this Iowa State meet that we were en route to really felt like, hey, we figured it out. Like, we're all together. We had a great meet at Lindenwood, even though we didn't have everybody travel. But we now have everyone back that we didn't have before from injuries or different things. So I think it really felt like we were hitting our stride. So I think that's where we almost feel very incomplete of, well, did we really figure it out? Like, where's the data so we know what to improve on for next year, or where not to improve, what to keep the same. And so I think that's probably the hardest part of it ending, and making the athletes realize that it wasn't like a failure. We didn't fail by any means, but it kind of feels like we just ended because we did. But there was no like, well, we did great, we didn't do great, what are we doing forward, what are we doing backward, how are we moving forward? So I think we just have to take the data we have and move forward with that. So I think that's the hardest part of it, is that we feel incomplete, but we've talked about them using kind of that as a story jumping off point for next year. Whatever you felt going into MPSF, whether it was good or bad, use that to train and get better at that stuff in summer and fall, and boom, make that the story and the start of our journey moving forward for next year. It doesn't just have to feel incomplete now. Use that to your advantage and make it part of next year and making the 2020-2021 season great.
Yeah. As if this season isn't weird enough with it being cut short with the pandemic and things like that. Before that even happened, huge blow. Tyler Davis, arguably one of your best gymnasts, goes out with an injury. And not to mention the fact that you go from an assistant to an interim head coach. So there's a lot of things there that happen in the season. How did you handle that? And I think more appropriately towards the interim head coach thing, that's got to be a strange position, because in a lot of cases it's good guy, bad guy as far as coaches are concerned. Maybe you were the good guy, but now you're the bad guy. Or how did that work for you exactly?
Well, to address your first thing, yeah, we unfortunately we did have Tyler, coming, where she is coming off of a season-ending injury, and she is a top all-arounder for us. And we'll have her back this senior year with a great senior class of 7. So I'm really excited next season for that senior class to be as strong, not just academically and athletically, but in the leadership and helping the team move forward through uncertainty. Because, like you just said, sir, we had a lot of uncertainty this last year. So I think we've kind of got a little bit of a leg up on our competition of, hey, we just dealt with a lot of uncertainty and shaky waters, and everyone's now going through it, this year with COVID-19 and the effects of it. But we've already just experienced it last year. So we're going to be able to handle it a lot better, especially with this senior class of leaders. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Kind of the assistant role in general is kind of, like you said, being the good guy. You're a little bit more friendly. Not that you're not friendly as a head coach, but as a head coach and in even in the interim, you have to kind of put on that hat. That was the first time sometimes they saw me kind of lay down a law or put down a rule that maybe they didn't really like, or I had to enforce a rule that they weren't expecting. And that was kind of the first time that they had to see that from me. But then I also had to do that. So I think it was a two-way street. But what I think really helped in that transition, which can be difficult, is the fact that I had such a good rapport with the team. I've wholeheartedly, everything I do is because it's the best for the individual, the program, the team, the Air Force Academy, whether they're good decisions or hard decisions or easy decisions. It's always for the best of the program. And I truly believe that the athletes know that. So when I had to make some tough calls this season, which I did, whether it came down to reprimands because of, academics or just things not showing up to meetings or different things like that, they realized it wasn't just doing it because I thought it was fun and I wanted to be a bad guy. They saw that there was light at the end of the tunnel and I was doing it because it means something more. And we are a team, a program, we are one. So I think it was an easier transition because we have that good rapport and they know that I'm doing everything in their best interest and we have that positive team culture. And at the end of the day, it made us stronger because we rise and sink together. We rise and fall together. If we let one bad apple spoil the bunch, then we can't go anywhere. So it was a tough transition, especially because it was abrupt. But I was really excited for it. And I'm excited to continue those opportunities and really excited to have that opportunity under my belt from this past year.
What has it been like for you to coach at a service academy? I know you had background at other places, but explain to me maybe the biggest shock for you or the biggest difference, what's the biggest thing that you were not directly prepared for without having been here before?
Yeah, you're right. I came from several other civilian universities, which is great to have that contrasting view. I think just the time commitment, and I think people will tell you that. I think our athletes will tell you that too. Is you feel like, yeah, I know. Like they have other stuff to do, but no, they have a lot of other stuff to do. And so, really understanding that time commitment, I think, was a big shock because not that other universities don't have a tough time and they have other rules and regulations too, but we have a different breed that come here and they're fantastic. They work so hard, they're intelligent, they're great young women that are going to lead our country. And they just buckle down and do work where, a lot of other times we hear people say like at a civilian school, oh, well, I don't have time for this or blah, blah, or here's this. But really it comes down to probably just like, do they go tanning and push their tanning schedule? Or do they go here, where our athletes aren't making that every single hour, every single day? It's not about tanning or doing this. It's really about, military stuff and academics and juggling it. And then a little bit of the free time they have, enjoying that. So I think it was really that time commitment. But with that, I got to see how blessed we are to have athletes that want to work in all aspects, leadership, military, gymnastics, and really just be the character that we want and can build off of. So I think that was probably the biggest shock. And then personally, it was just always the lingo, right? When you first walk into that first meeting, whether it's an athletics department meeting, superintendent meeting, you're standing up. For me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm standing up, I'm sitting down, don't clap, yes, clap, no clap. That was probably the hardest thing, personally, just going through meetings and getting down acronyms because we have an acronym for everything. So that probably was probably the hardest thing personally to learn right away off the bat.
You talk about that time commitment. That was one of the questions I think from maybe a fan, maybe a recruit, is that how do your athletes balance that time, and how do they know how much time to spend on gymnastics and still do the military, still do the academics? And I guess maybe if you know and you can tell them, what does a regular day for an Air Force gymnast look like?
Absolutely. One word, I mean, there's multiple, but planner. We make everybody have a planner and they need to use a planner, agenda, whatever you want to call it, calendar, something like that. Some people are really resistant to it at first, but then they learn to love it. So yeah, we just finished up some individual meetings with all of our athletes and asked a bunch of different things. And even some of our sophomores have been like, I really figured it out. And planning ahead and having my planner really helped. So the planner is always really helpful, and that seems silly, but our athletes take a lot more academic classes, than a standard civilian school. We've got a bigger core curriculum. They graduate with a lot more credits than other universities. So they're taking more classes in the fall and spring semester. So knowing when the tests are coming up, when the GRs are coming up, things like that, a paper so that they can backtrack and go to the writing center 3 days before, so it has time to get, read and corrected and things like that. Because if you just leave it all to the end, that's when things pile up and you feel a little bit overwhelmed. So the planner is really helpful, but we also work on communication a lot. I know I keep saying that and it's silly, but it really does come down to that because EI, again, here's that acronym, which stands for extra instruction, which is just tutoring or office hours. But we encourage our athletes to use EI all the time. But again, if they don't communicate that with us in order to either come late to practice, go early from practice, things like that, then things don't get done in time, or they feel a little bit overwhelmed. So we always ask on that communication, because academics is really important. One of my assistant coaches, Andy, she's our academic point person, who is awesome. And I put in charge of academics, and she's a great coach, but is also coming from an academic background. So she checks in with all of our freshmen weekly, academic people that have some problems with grades weekly. She sends them out, times for EI and QRC and different things like that. So we really stay on top of that, because we want to know everything that they're involved with, to help them be successful everywhere they are. We know gymnastics isn't the only thing. When they graduate, gymnastics is done. There's really no professional gymnastics, especially for females. They tend to go to the Olympics younger, right before they come to college. So they're going to be an officer. So we want them to understand the time commitment. So really it comes down to communication, using that planner, and just being honest. And the last thing, which I know I always have to work on, but as an adult, is asking for help. That's always a really hard lesson to learn, because when we ask for help, sometimes we feel like that means we've failed. And that's a big message to our team, is that does not mean you failed. You're actually taking a step in the right direction of asking for help, whether that's, I need more EI, can I have this Monday off, I'm overwhelmed, or should I drop this class, should I not, do I need to go to another advisor, whatever it is. If you ask for help, we're going to be able to get you that help immediately, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. So a lot of those things, that kind of combination, is where we are really successful. But I think the day in the life is probably pretty similar to what our women's gymnastics people do in high school. They wake up early in the morning. Depends on your classes, kind of, and if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, depending on how early. But classes are usually 7:30 to 11:30. We do them in the morning. And then you have new meal or new meal formation. You might have an M5, so a class after lunch, but a lot of the time they don't. So right after lunch is kind of a little bit of that rest, a little bit of that training room, rehab, doing some of those things, hanging out, catching up a second, then practice from 2:15 to 6, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We give them Wednesday off every week, because it's a nice middle of the day or middle of the week, catch up on meetings or catch up on EI or different things like that. And then on Saturday during the fall, we usually practice about 9 to 1, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then throughout those practice times, we also have in-gym conditioning and weight room conditioning with our strength and conditioning coach, Coach Buck. But once they practice, they go back to their rooms, study, academic call to quarters, doing that study time, then get to bed, then start it right over during the week. So pretty similar, I think, to what most gymnasts do in high school. But our athletes really like this schedule. I know during quarantine, a lot of them are like, I don't know what to do, because I can kind of do stuff whenever. And I really like having that nice schedule. So that was a really long answer. So I do
No,
apologize.
that was great. No, it makes sense. And if there's recruits watching, I'd like them to know. As a matter of fact, that brings me to the next question. What's the best advice that you can give to a younger gymnast? This is 7th grade or so, in hopes of attending or maybe becoming an Air Force gymnast in the future.
There's a lot of things that go into becoming a recruit. Obviously, one of the main ones is academics. So obviously, if they're 7th grade, they still kind of have a little while before we kind of look at a GPA, but start there on really good study habits. When they're getting into the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th, that's when we're really tracking that GPA, and then starting to look at ACTs and SAT scores, which are all really important. So starting early with really good study habits is really, 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 really helpful. Usually gymnasts are pretty good with that, but the great study habits and maintaining grades. Also pushing yourself in your classes. So taking some AP or taking honors. We are very heavy in the STEM, the math and sciences at the academy. So making sure that you feel prepared in those classes and you take them in high school before coming out here is really helpful, because we always want everyone to be as successful as possible. And then also making sure we always look for well-rounded candidates. So make sure that you're doing, whether it's volunteer hours, or maybe you're part of National Honor Society, or a lot of our gymnasts work at their club gym, which is great experience for us to have, and working with Special Olympics or running birthday parties at the gym. So those are really great things. And then obviously, maybe not last, but gymnastics. We obviously look at gymnastics too if they're wanting to be a recruit. And what we look for is level 10 in the USA Gymnastics, USAG level system. And that means we're looking for like 10-0 start values in level 10 in the JOs, but also the 10-0 start values in the college rules. So if we want to specifically go by vault, I'm looking for upgrades. I'm looking for vault upgrades. It doesn't have to be your Chinko full or half. It could be for an answering front pike or pike half or cause full, but we're definitely looking for upgrades. We've got a really awesome returning senior class on vault and incoming freshman class on vault. So you're definitely going to need to be able to have an upgrade in order to make a lineup. Bars, we're really looking for those 10-0 start values and that single bar de-release, Ginger, Tkachev, things like that. But also a dismount. That's usually where people get a little hung up is not having an upgraded dismount or a dismount in bonus combination. Beam, honestly, we never have any problem with people having enough skills on beam. It's just, can they stay on the beam? So we definitely want to see some fight on beam. And then the other thing that I really like to see on beam are beautiful leaps and jumps. Obviously, if you remember watching Brianna Carswell this year on beam, right? She's kind of got it all. She does the acro, but she has pretty dance and she's got some leaps and jumps, but not those 120 and 160 leaps. We want full 180, beautiful presentation on beam. That's something that's going to make you stand out because most people can have all of the skills on beam. It's not hard to get the skills. It's just hard to stay on. And then floor, we're looking for those 2Ds. We like them in acro, but it could be a leap too, but double tuck, double pike, or a Rudy, or a front double full. And then I think that last thing on floor is that presentation factor. If you watch JO and then college is fun, right? College gymnastics, they look at you through the camera. They've got a little bit of that poise. So having that personality come back, that's definitely what we're looking for on floor. And then, there's definitely times where maybe a recruit only has 3 events that are at a 10-0, and that's okay. What we're looking for is that you have something special. You're kind of in that elite quality, and you kind of have that gymnastic sass a little bit of, that presentation where you look and you say, wow, she's saying, watch me. She hits a beautiful finish. She gives you that eye contact. And that's going to make you stand out among the pool because we want clean gymnastics. That's really what college gymnastics is about, is doing skills, but doing them well with really, really, really good clean form. So if you can do all of that, you can definitely be Air Force women's gymnastics recruit. And we definitely
Yeah, that's quite a lot there. How do you narrow it down though, as far as recruiting? Because I think you could attack it from different directions. You could say, okay, I'm only going to look at athletes that have met this bar in work, community work. I've only any this bar in academics. Only this bar that you mentioned in gymnastics. Where do you start? There's so much to think about. And I mean, if you obviously go out and you just look for the best gymnasts, a lot of times those gymnasts won't be qualified to come to the Air Force Academy. So how do you do it?
It's a little bit of a process. We almost kind of have to look at academics first a little bit because you're right. We might have some stellar athletes, and not that they're not good at academics, but they might just not be at the level that's needed for the Air Force Academy. And so we kind of have to look a little bit at academics first. Which again can be really difficult if we're looking at, if somebody's telling us about a 9th grader, somebody's telling us about a 10th grader, because they haven't really taken the ACT or the SAT first. So we've kind of got to hone that in a little bit. So a lot of it does come down to, club coach. That's what we call them, where they do their gymnastics. Their club coach relationships that we have, where they reach out, where club coaches might say, hey, Susie Q, she really loves you guys, and she's really great at academics. We never have any issues with her. She's here. She's really interested. We don't make offers until junior year at all and everything like that. So usually by that time they've taken an SAT, ACT. So we know where they are on that, but we kind of have to look at some academics first. When we go to JO Nationals and they give us those big databases, we kind of have to filter through some academics first. We can't take a GPA below here, or let's start looking here first and above so that we know that they can get in and we can then look at the gymnastics. Again, sometimes we find the gymnastics we really love, like we see somebody on Instagram that friended us, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful gymnast, like let's look at this. And then we go and we find them on the club coach, and we call the club coach, and we go that route. So it's a little bit of a twofold, but a lot of it does come down to that communication of club coaches that we know, myself and the assistants, reaching out to them, looking at databases for academics. But it is a little bit of that academic first to make sure that they can be qualified, because at the end of the day, I also don't want to waste an athlete's time too. Not only are we spending time in recruiting them because we thought they were a good athlete, but we also don't want to get their hopes up too if there's no shot of them being able to get in. So I think it's a little bit of justice that we do our job on our side too, so that that person can get to the right university that's the perfect fit for them. And the Air Force Academy just isn't for everybody, and that's okay, because we want somebody that wants to be here because of all those reasons we've talked about today, for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's get back to the current team now. You've mentioned you've been in contact with them, maybe some, phone calls, FaceTime, whatever. How are they staying in shape? Because gymnastics in particular, not an easy thing to do, because I don't believe a lot of them have like a beam in their basement or especially bars anywhere. So
Yeah.
how do they stay in shape?
Yeah, the bars is probably the toughest one, just because your forearm strength goes like that. But now gyms are starting to open up in a lot of the states that our athletes live in. So that's really nice. A lot of them have been getting in there. But really, everyone's just starting with basics in those gyms, because we can't go from top all the way to doing nothing to back up to the top. We kind of have to progress back up just for safety, and just like physically, we can stay in shape, but their gymnastic shape is a little bit different. So lots of our athletes now that are getting back into the gyms are starting back over with the conditioning and the basics. But before the gyms were open, we were just kind of being really creative. We still told them, hey, we need to do endurance floor routines, but do it in your backyard. Like, you're not tumbling, but maybe when you get to your pass, you do your hollow holds, you do your squat jumps, you do all these other little things that we do throughout the year. So maintaining endurance floor routine. I know Coach Buck, our strength and conditioning coach, he sent out a lot of really fun things for them to do as well, that they could do at home, and kind of even made some of them a little like competitive, like, okay, turn in your numbers at the end of the week, see where you guys stood with everyone else. So that was really fun. We sent them through Coach Buck some things of handstand circuits. We might not be able to swing bars, but everyone's got a wall somewhere, whether you're inside or you're outside or whatnot. They can do handstand holds, they can do Thomas touches, they can work on their shoulder stuff. A lot of them still had therabands and different things like that. So we worked a lot of ankle mobility, ankle strengthening, so that hopefully when we come back to training, we're not hit with those overuse injuries, that our ankles were still strong, our shins were still strong, our shoulders, our wrists. So really just trying to be a little bit creative. I know some people even work them. I know they do it in rehab a lot, but buckets, gallon buckets with rice, and you reach your hand in and you kind of do this. It really does tire out your forearms. It seems like, would rice really do that? But it does actually. So again, working on your grip strength. Now we're gonna have a rice shortage, because I told all the gymnasts to go buy all these buckets of rice. Sorry. But yeah, so just being creative and being a little bit fun like that. So when we come back in August or whenever we're able to do it, we can kind of hit the ground running safely. But a lot of creative, fun things like that. Our girls, which I guess is nice, have been running a lot more, which we don't tend to run as gymnasts, right? We run 80 feet and that's max. And so they've been running a little bit more, which is really good. And then lots of bike riding, which is nice on our joints too. So kind of doing stuff outside, because we're usually like vampires always inside. So I think they've been enjoying the conditioning outside to get a little bit of the vitamin D. But I think they've just been really creative, and that's been really fun, and not feeling sorry for themselves. They can still stay in shape, and they've been doing that. So I like that.
That's key. That's key. Let's talk a little bit about next season and what maybe you might expect from these athletes coming back. Got to be huge to get Tyler Davis back, but there's a lot more than her, because while she was hurt, other gymnasts were able to step up and do some things. So I guess, what kind of expectations would you be? I know it's early, but what kind of things would you expect this team to be able to do? They're coming off MPSF champions before last year. We didn't know what happened last year. So
Yeah.
what do you expect?
Yeah, I expect greatness. because they're great, phenomenal young women. So yeah, I am really excited about our senior class. I know we've talked about that already, but we have 7 of them returning. And I think at one of my counts, and I could be a little off, but I think this past year they made up 17 routines. We compete 24 routines. So again, we've got a lot of experience coming back. And you hit the head on the nail on the head a second ago, where you said we competed every single person on our roster this year. I've never been a part of a program that's ever done that. That's unheard of. So we did it because we had injuries. We had Tyler, we had other rolled ankles, that took more weeks to come back. We had other weird things that cropped up and then they went away and they came back and different things like that. So every single person on the roster competed, which is a stat that's hard to measure and you really can't measure that experience. But what it's going to do is bring that experience into next year. So I'm really excited about that because we've got all that experience from every single person instead of just having 7 people that compete or 5 people that compete or 9 people that compete. It's 16 people that compete and can step up for the team, which is awesome. But yeah, that senior class brings a ton of experience back, tons of routines. Same thing with that junior class. We've got 6 people in that junior class. We've got a small freshman, soon to be sophomore class of 2, but some great experience in Brianna there and Mackenzie Bloom. She stepped up when she had one of those injuries and we needed her at Lindenwood and she hadn't competed at all. And boom, she stayed on beam and she stepped up and did it. So that was awesome. And we've got 7 of them coming back or coming in from basic training. And so we're really excited about those 7 to give us some depth on some events where we need it. We really need it on bars. We need it on vault. We always need it on floor in order to be able to balance out, those injuries or just overuse. And then we've got some really fierce freshmen coming for beam. So I'm really excited about that because that can be a really great event for us. It was the only event last year that went 49 for us, but it was also a little volatile. So I think having that confidence coming in is really great. So I'm excited to see some consistency. I'm excited to see some fight. I'm excited to see some fire. And I'm really just excited to see that competition between the team, which is going to be led by that 7 senior class. So I think this next year, we're going to be conference champions. I know we're going to be dynamite at USA Gymnastics Collegiate Nationals. That's going to be at SEMO this year. Like, we've got a lot of great goals. I know that we're going to get a 196. We're going to break the new academy record. We're going to make a new academy record. We've never gone 196 before, but that's because we have all of this experience and all this confidence. So there's going to be great things for this coming up season, for sure.
That's awesome. Another question before I let you go is about your alumni. Has any alumni reached out to you during this time? And maybe more importantly, what can alumni and supporters do for you now that might help the program in this time?
We've heard from a couple alumni. What we're also working on our end is kind of reaching out to some alumni to do a fun event. So alumni, if you're watching, make sure you check your emails. And if you don't ever hear from me, text me or email me. But we're going to do some of these Falcon follow-up things. You guys have a lot of great experience that we want to share with our recruits and we want to share with our current athletes, whether it's about your majors, experiences at USAFA, things you've done in the past, things like that. We've got some specific questions we want to reach out to you about so we can pass that along and tighten our alumni community. But things they can do from us is just support us. I think, our athletes are really out there on social media. So, reach out to them that way, reach out to me. I know they're going to be excited when you come back, whenever anybody's able to travel or fly or anything like that. Like, stop in the gym. We want to get to know you better. We know some of our alumni and some of them we don't, but we want to get to know you. We want to have events where we get together and stem all those things. But I think just knowing that we have your support and knowing that you guys went through tough times, it might not be the same pandemic or COVID-19, but there was things that you guys went through, and how did you guys get through it? Like, what made you get through those tough times at USAFA that when you were here as an athlete, or even when you graduated and you were an officer, what did you do during those tough times, and how you're getting through them right now? That really is going to help us learn how to continue to get through as a staff, as a team, as a program, as a USAFA family. So that will really help, but they can always reach out and and just support our team in any way possible. And I've got some great ideas coming up for this year that will really be a lot of fun for the alumni and having that connection for sure. So we love our alumni support. We want to have more of it, and we want to reach out to you guys more. So obviously let us know too what we can do from our end.
Yeah, I think it's great that you want to build that, because I really that's a good thing for recruiting too, is just to hear from the ladies that have gone on and the great things that they've done in the Air Force. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to speak to about your athletes or yourself at all?
I think probably the only thing is the Air Force Academy Women's Gymnastics team is great. We're unstoppable. We're a great family. I'm really proud of our athletes and our alumni and our family that we have built here. And I know we're going to continue to build an even better program, positive family, really tight knit community. And we're super excited and grateful for all the support we always get, especially during this COVID-19 time. It's always administration does a lot of work on the back end. That's probably not always um, thanked, right? Because it's not always seen. But from myself and the staff and the team as well, we want to say thanks. We really appreciate all the scrambling you guys have been doing. You've been having 1 million Zoom and Teams meetings a day to have us know what we're going to do moving forward for the fall and different things like that, and making sure that we can have a fall and fighting for everything that we're able to have, because it is so important. I know our athletes want to come back. Administration is usually unthanked a lot. So we want to say thank you from Air Force Women's Gymnastics on supporting us, having all of those meetings, and making sure that we can have a great fall and great season and putting it all together. And we're happy to represent USAFA Gymnastics.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jen Langley, for answering questions very quite honestly, and hopefully we'll see you soon in the gym.
Yes, hopefully. I cannot wait to get inside of a gymnastics gym. Thank you.
All right.